First contact and misunderstanding. The Starship Odyssey drifted silently through the inky blackness of space, its sleek hull glinting in the light of a distant sun. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, her dark eyes fixed on the viewscreen before her. After months of travel, they had finally reached their destination, a previously unexplored sector of the galaxy, promising new discoveries, and perhaps the holy grail of space exploration. First contact with an alien civilization. Any signs of activity? Lieutenant Rodriguez, Sarah asked, her voice steady despite the excitement bubbling beneath the surface. Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez, the ship's sensor officer, shook her head. Nothing yet, Captain. Wait. Her fingers flew over the control panel. I'm picking up an energy signature. It's unlike anything we've seen before. Sarah leaned forward, her heart racing. On screen. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a massive structure floating in space. It was shaped like a giant snowflake, its crystalline arms stretching out for kilometers in every direction. Lights pulsed along its surface in hypnotic patterns. My God, whispered Commander John Takeda, the ship's first officer. It's beautiful. Sarah nodded, momentarily lost for words. This was it, proof that humanity wasn't alone in the universe. After centuries of searching, they had finally found what they were looking for. Open a channel, Sarah ordered, her voice thick with emotion. Let's say hello. For several tense minutes, the crew of the Odyssey waited. Then suddenly, the view screen changed. They found themselves face to face with an alien being. It had a vaguely humanoid shape, but its skin was a shimmering blue-green, and its eyes were large, multifaceted orbs that seemed to take in everything at once. Greetings, Sarah said, fighting to keep her voice steady. I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth ship Odyssey. We come in peace and friendship. The alien tilted its head, studying them with those strange, mesmerizing eyes. When it spoke, its voice was like music, a series of harmonious tones that somehow conveyed meaning. Welcome, humans of Earth, the alien said, its words translated by the ship's computer. I am Zarek, representative of the Lumina Collective. We have long awaited this moment. Over the next few days, the crew of the Odyssey engaged in a whirlwind of cultural exchange with the Lumina. They learned that the aliens were part of a vast interstellar alliance, comprising dozens of species spread across thousands of light years. The Lumina were one of the oldest and most advanced civilizations in this alliance, and they had been observing humanity for centuries, waiting for the right moment to make contact. Sarah found herself captivated by the Lumina's technology and culture. Their society seemed to be a utopia, free from war, poverty, and disease. They had mastered the manipulation of energy and matter in ways that seemed like magic to the human observers. However, as the days wore on, Sarah began to notice a subtle undercurrent of tension in their interactions with the Lumina. The aliens seemed fascinated by human history, particularly Earth's long and bloody record of warfare. You have achieved so much, despite your violent past, Zarek said during one of their meetings. It is remarkable. Sarah felt a flicker of unease at the alien's tone. We've worked hard to move beyond our violent tendencies, she explained. Our mission is one of peace and exploration. Zarek's multifaceted eyes seemed to bore into her. And yet, you still maintain military forces. Why is that, if you truly desire peace? The question caught Sarah off guard. For defense, she said carefully. The galaxy can be a dangerous place. The alien made a sound that might have been a laugh. Indeed it can be. Especially with species like yours in it. The comment stung, but Sarah forced herself to remain diplomatic. I assure you, Zarek, Earth has no aggressive intentions towards your people or any others. As the days passed, the tension continued to grow. The Lumina seemed increasingly interested in Earth's military capabilities, asking probing questions that made Sarah and her crew uncomfortable. At the same time, they became more guarded about their own technology, refusing to share information on their advanced weapons and defenses. The situation came to a head during a formal dinner aboard the Lumina station. Sarah and her senior officers were invited to dine with the Lumina leadership. The conversation was polite but strained, with both sides dancing around the elephant in the room. Finally, Zarek set down his eating utensil and fixed Sarah with a penetrating stare. "Captain Chen, we have a proposition for you and your people." Sarah straightened in her seat. "We're listening." "The Lumina Collective is willing to share our advanced technology with Earth," Zarek said. "In exchange, we ask for something simple, the complete demilitarization of your planet." A shocked silence fell over the room. Sarah exchanged glances with her officers, seeing her own disbelief mirrored in their faces. "I'm sorry," Sarah said slowly, "but I don't have the authority to make that kind of decision. And even if I did, I'm not sure it would be wise. Our military isn't just for fighting wars. It also provides disaster relief, scientific research, and—" Zarek cut her off with a wave of his hand. "You misunderstand, Captain. This is not a request. It is a requirement for your continued participation in galactic affairs." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "Are you threatening us?" The alien's eyes flashed. "We are protecting ourselves and the rest of the galaxy from a potentially dangerous species. Your kind has a history of violence that cannot be ignored." Commander Takeda leaned forward, his face flushed with anger. "Now wait just a minute. John," Sarah warned, placing a hand on his arm. She turned back to Zarek, struggling to keep her voice calm. "I understand your concerns, but you're judging us based on our past, not our present or our potential future. Humanity has made great strides towards peace, and yet you cling to your weapons," Zarek countered. "If you truly desire peace, prove it. Disarm yourselves completely." Sarah stood up slowly, her mind racing. This was quickly spiraling out of control. "I think we need some time to discuss this among ourselves," she said carefully. "Perhaps we should reconvene tomorrow." Zarek's eyes narrowed. "Very well. But know this, Captain Chen. The future of your species hangs in the balance. Choose wisely." As Sarah and her officers were escorted back to their ship, a heavy silence hung over them. They had come seeking friendship and knowledge, but instead found themselves on the brink of an interstellar incident. Back on the Odyssey, Sarah called an emergency meeting of her senior staff. "Options, people," she said, pacing the conference room. "What are we dealing with here?" "It's a trap," Commander Takeda said bluntly. "They're using the offer of advanced technology to manipulate us into a vulnerable position." Lieutenant Rodriguez nodded in agreement. "The Lumina have been probing us for weaknesses since we arrived. This demand for disarmament is just the culmination of their strategy." "But why?" asked Dr. Amelia Vasquez, the ship's chief medical officer. "What do they gain by disarming us?" Sarah rubbed her temples, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on her. "Control," she said quietly. "They gain control over a potentially rival species." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for centuries. First contact with an advanced alien civilization. But instead of the harmonious exchange of knowledge and culture they had hoped for, they found themselves facing a stark choice: submit to alien dominion or risk interstellar conflict. "We need to warn Earth," Sarah said finally. "This goes way beyond our mission parameters. We need guidance from the highest levels of government." As the crew of the Odyssey prepared to send their urgent message back to Earth, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Humanity had taken its first steps onto the galactic stage, but it was a far more dangerous and complex arena than anyone had imagined. The stars outside the viewscreen seemed colder now, distant and unforgiving. Sarah Chen, the captain who had led humanity to its greatest discovery, now faced the daunting task of preventing that discovery from becoming humanity's greatest threat. The journey that had begun with hope and wonder now teetered on the brink of conflict. As Sarah stared out at the alien snowflake structure, she couldn't help but wonder, had humanity's long-sought dream of contact with alien life just become its worst nightmare? The galactic stage. The message from Earth arrived 3 days later, encoded and compressed into a tight beam transmission. Captain Sarah Chen sat in her ready room. Her senior staff gathered around her as she opened the communique. The holographic image of Admiral Yuki Tanaka, head of the United Earth Space Command, flickered to life above Sarah's desk. The Admiral's face was grave, her eyes tired but determined. "Captain Chen, we've received your report on the situation with the Lumina Collective. First, let me commend you and your crew for your handling of this delicate situation. You've done well under unprecedented circumstances." Sarah nodded, feeling a mix of pride and apprehension. "Thank you, Admiral. What are our orders?" Admiral Tanaka's hologram seemed to sigh. "The situation is complex. Earth's governments are divided on how to respond. Some see the Lumina's offer of advanced technology as too good to pass up, regardless of the cost. Others view their demands as an unacceptable threat to our sovereignty." Commander Takeda leaned forward. "With all due respect, Admiral, we can't seriously be considering giving up our ability to defend ourselves." "No, we're not," Admiral Tanaka said firmly. "But we also can't afford to alienate the first advanced alien civilization we've encountered. Your new orders are to continue diplomatic efforts with the Lumina. Buy us time. A task force is being assembled to join you, led by our top xeno-diplomat, Dr. Aisha Patel." Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Dr. Patel was renowned for her work in theoretical alien cultures and communication. If anyone could navigate this minefield, it was her. In the meantime, the Admiral continued, "We're activating the Argus Protocol." A collective intake of breath swept through the room. The Argus Protocol was a long-standing contingency plan, developed in secret over decades, for the possibility of hostile first contact. It involved the rapid mobilization and deployment of Earth's hidden military assets, ships, weapons, and technologies that had been kept off the official records. "The existence of the Argus Protocol is classified at the highest level," Admiral Tanaka warned. "As far as the Lumina or any other alien species are concerned, Earth remains a relatively minor military power. This deception may be our only advantage if negotiations fail." As the hologram flickered out, Sarah turned to her crew. "You heard the Admiral. We continue as we have been, but now we're playing for time. Dr. Vasquez, I want you to compile all the medical and biological data we have on the Lumina. Lieutenant Rodriguez, keep scanning their station. I want to know everything about their capabilities. Commander Takeda, review our security protocols. If things go south, we need to be ready." The next few weeks were a delicate dance of diplomacy and deception. Sarah and her crew continued their cultural exchange with the Lumina, all while subtly probing for weaknesses and gathering intelligence. The arrival of Dr. Patel and her team brought a new dimension to the negotiations. Dr. Patel, a brilliant woman in her 50s with streaks of gray in her dark hair, approached the Lumina with a mix of genuine curiosity and calculated strategy. She engaged them in long philosophical discussions about the nature of peace, the role of conflict in societal evolution, and the ethical implications of advanced technology. "Your civilization has achieved remarkable things," Dr. Patel said to Zarek during one such discussion. "But surely you understand that the path to peace is not always straightforward. Each species must find its own way." Zarek's multifaceted eyes seemed to shimmer with an emotion Sarah couldn't quite read. "We have seen countless civilizations rise and fall, Dr. Patel. Those that cling to violence inevitably destroy themselves or others. We seek to guide younger races away from this path, even if that guidance comes at the cost of their autonomy," Dr. Patel asked gently. The alien was silent for a long moment. "Sometimes," it said finally, "the cost of true peace is high, but it is always worth paying." As the diplomatic dance continued, Sarah received regular encrypted updates from Earth. The Argus Protocol was proceeding at a feverish pace. Ships were being retrofitted with advanced stealth technology. New weapons were being rushed through final testing, and military personnel were being quietly mobilized across the planet. But it wasn't just Earth that was preparing for potential conflict. As the Odyssey's crew continued their scans of the Lumina station, they began to notice subtle changes. Energy signatures shifted, suggesting the movement of large masses within the structure. New shield harmonics came online, making their defensive capabilities even more formidable. "They're preparing for something," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported during a senior staff meeting. "Either they don't trust us, or they're planning something." Commander Takeda finished grimly. Sarah rubbed her temples, feeling the pressure building. "We need more information. Dr. Patel, how are the negotiations progressing?" The xenodiplomat's face was troubled. On the surface, well enough. The Lumina seemed genuinely interested in cultural exchange, but there's an undercurrent I can't quite put my finger on. It's as if they're waiting for something. As if on cue, the ship's communication system chirped. "Captain," came the voice of the communications officer. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. It's Admiral Tanaka." Sarah exchanged glances with her senior staff. "Put it through to the conference room." Admiral Tanaka's hologram appeared, her face grim. "Captain Chen, we've received troubling intelligence. The Lumina aren't just a single advanced species. They're representatives of a vast interstellar alliance called the Galactic Concord. And Earth isn't the only world they've approached with their offer of guidance." Sarah felt her blood run cold. "How many others?" "At least a dozen that we know of, spread across this arm of the galaxy. Most are pre-FTL civilizations like we were until recently. A few, like us, have just begun to explore interstellar space." Dr. Patel leaned forward, her eyes wide. "A test," she breathed. "This isn't just about us. It's a screening process for admission into their Concord." Admiral Tanaka nodded. "That's our assessment as well. But there's more. We've detected signs of a conflict on the fringes of Concord space, something big enough that they're mobilizing significant forces to deal with it." The pieces suddenly fell into place in Sarah's mind. "They're not just looking for peaceful species to join their alliance," she said slowly. "They're looking for soldiers." The Admiral's hologram flickered as she nodded grimly. "Exactly. The Lumina and their allies face a threat they can't handle alone. They're seeking out species with combat experience, but also those willing to submit to their authority. Earth's long history of warfare makes us attractive, but our reluctance to disarm makes us dangerous in their eyes." A heavy silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. Humanity had stumbled onto a galactic chessboard, where the stakes were nothing less than the future of their species. "What are our orders, Admiral?" Sarah asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her mind. Admiral Tanaka's eyes were steel. "Continue the negotiations, but be prepared for anything. The task force will reach your position in 72 hours. Once they arrive, we'll reveal the existence of our advanced capabilities to the Lumina. With luck, it will be enough to secure us a place at the galactic table on our own terms." As the hologram faded, Sarah turned to her crew. Their faces showed a mix of determination and apprehension, mirroring her own feelings. "Well," she said, managing a wry smile, "it looks like humanity's debut on the galactic stage is going to be more dramatic than we anticipated. Let's make sure we're ready for our cue." As the Odyssey's crew rushed to prepare for the arrival of the Earth Task Force, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were balanced on the edge of a knife. In just a few short weeks, they had gone from celebrating first contact to the brink of potential interstellar conflict. The vast, glittering expanse of the Lumina station loomed outside the ship's viewports, a constant reminder of the advanced civilization they faced. But now, knowing what lay behind its gleaming facade, Sarah saw it differently. It wasn't just a marvel of alien engineering. It was a challenge, a test, and perhaps a threat. Humanity had long dreamed of taking its place among the stars. Now that dream was about to become reality, but in a way no one had ever imagined. As Captain Sarah Chen stared out at the alien megastructure, She steeled herself for what was to come. The galaxy was watching. It was time for humanity to show what it was truly capable of. The reluctant warriors. The arrival of the Earth Task Force was nothing short of spectacular. One moment, the space around the Odyssey was empty save for the looming presence of the Lumina station. The next, it was filled with ships. They seemed to materialize out of the very fabric of space itself, their sleek hulls gleaming in the light of the distant sun. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Odyssey, her heart pounding with a mixture of pride and apprehension. The ships before her represented the pinnacle of human military technology, the fruits of the long-secret Argus Protocol. Stealth systems that bent light and sensor readings around them. Weapons that could harness the power of artificial singularities. Shields that could withstand the fury of a stellar flare. "My God," breathed Commander Takeda, his eyes wide. "I knew we had hidden assets. But this—" Sarah nodded, understanding his awe. "It seems humanity has been preparing for this moment for longer than any of us realized." The lead ship of the task force, a massive dreadnought christened the UES Prometheus, hailed the Odyssey. The face that appeared on the view screen was familiar. Admiral Yuki Tanaka herself. "Captain Chen," the admiral said, her voice crisp. "Status report." Sarah straightened. "Admiral, the Lumina have maintained their position. They've shown no signs of hostile intent, but their station has been undergoing continuous modifications. We believe they're upgrading their defensive systems." Admiral Tanaka nodded. "Understood. It's time to show our hand." Hail the Lumina station. Moments later, Zarek's alien visage appeared on the screen alongside Admiral Tanaka's. The Lumina representative's multifaceted eyes widened almost imperceptibly at the sight of the Earth fleet. "Greetings, Zarek of the Lumina Collective," Admiral Tanaka said, her voice steady. "I am Admiral Yuki Tanaka of the United Earth Space Command. We have come to continue our discussions regarding Earth's place in the galactic community." Zarek was silent for a long moment, its eyes shifting rapidly, as if taking in every detail of the scene before it. When it spoke, its harmonious voice held a note of what might have been respect, or perhaps concern. "Admiral Tanaka, your arrival is unexpected. We were under the impression that Earth's spacefaring capabilities were limited." The Admiral's face remained impassive. "It seems we have both been keeping secrets, Zarek. Perhaps it's time for a more open dialogue between our peoples." What followed was a tense series of negotiations. The Earth delegation, led by Admiral Tanaka and Dr. Patel, laid out their position clearly. Humanity would not disarm, but they were open to joining the Galactic Concord as equal partners. They offered their unique perspectives, their adaptability, and yes, their military prowess as assets to the Alliance. The Lumina, for their part, seemed caught off guard by this turn of events. They conferred among themselves frequently, their musical language filling the communication channels with complex harmonies. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Zarek addressed the human delegation again. "Your species continues to surprise us," it said. "We had not anticipated such resourcefulness. Perhaps we have been too hasty in our judgments." Admiral Tanaka leaned forward. "Then you're willing to reconsider your demands?" Zarek's eyes shimmered. "We are. But first, there is something you must know. The reason for our insistence on disarmament." What the Lumina revealed next sent shockwaves through the human fleet. A vast and ancient enemy, known only as the Void Hunters, was encroaching on Concord space. These beings were unlike anything the Concord had faced before. Living shadows that consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty, lifeless husks in their wake. "We have fought them for millennia," Zarek explained, its voice heavy with what could only be described as weariness. "But they adapt to every strategy, every weapon we devise. We sought peaceful races to join our Concord because we feared that more militant species might inadvertently awaken the Hunters' full wrath." Sarah exchanged glances with Admiral Tanaka. The implications were staggering. The galaxy wasn't just a political stage. It was a battlefield, and humanity had just been drafted into a war beyond their wildest imaginations. "You need our help," Sarah said, realization dawning. "That's what this has all been about." Zarek's eyes focused on her. "Yes, Captain Chen. We need allies who can think differently, who can bring new strategies to bear against an enemy that has countered everything we've tried. But we also feared what a species like yours might become if introduced to the galactic stage too quickly." Admiral Tanaka's voice was steel. "We understand your concerns, Zarek, but subterfuge and coercion are poor foundations for an alliance. If you had simply asked for our help, you would have found humanity ready and willing to stand against this threat." The negotiations that followed were intense but productive. The Lumina, now more open about their true situation, shared information about the Void Hunters and the Concord's efforts to combat them. In return, the humans offered their unique perspectives on warfare and strategy. As the talks progressed, Sarah found herself working closely with a Lumina tactical expert named Zura. The aliens' approach to strategy was fascinatingly different from human military doctrine, focusing on harmony and balance rather than overwhelming force. "Your species thinks in such linear terms," Zyra observed during one of their sessions. "Attack, defend, flank. We see battle as a dance, a flow of energy to be redirected." Sarah nodded, intrigued. "And the Void Hunters? How do they fight?" Zyra's eyes darkened. "They do not fight. They consume. It is not battle to them, but feeding." The implication sent a chill down Sarah's spine. How do you fight an enemy that doesn't even acknowledge you as a combatant? As the days wore on, a plan began to take shape. The Concord would launch a major offensive against the Void Hunters, with Earth's forces playing a key role. The human fleet's advanced stealth technology, combined with weapons the Hunters had never encountered before, might provide the edge needed to turn the tide. But first, they needed to test their combined capabilities. The Joint Earth Lumina Task Force was assembled, with the Odyssey and several other human ships integrated into a Concord battle group. Their mission: to engage a small group of Void Hunters that had been detected on the fringes of Concord space. As the combined fleet prepared to depart, Sarah stood on the Odyssey's bridge, watching the swirling patterns of a Lumina cruiser's energy field interplay with the sleek, dark hull of a human destroyer. It was a stark visual representation of the unlikely alliance they had forged. "Captain," Lieutenant Rodriguez called from her station. "The Concord flagship is signaling. They're ready to depart." Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Humanity was about to engage in its first interstellar battle, fighting alongside aliens against an enemy they barely understood. "Signal our readiness," she ordered. "All hands, prepare for warp jump." As the stars outside the viewscreen stretched into lines of light, Sarah couldn't help but reflect on the irony of their situation. Humanity, long feared for its warlike nature, was now the reluctant warrior, standing against a threat to all life in the galaxy. The Odyssey leaped into warp, carrying Sarah and her crew towards an uncertain future. They had trained all their lives for this moment, honing their skills as explorers and diplomats. Now they would be called upon to become something else, soldiers in a war beyond imagination. As the ship hurtled through subspace, Sarah silently vowed that whatever came next, humanity would face it with courage, ingenuity, and the unwavering determination that had carried their species from stone tools to the stars. The reluctant warriors were going to war. The price of victory. The void of space erupted in a cacophony of light and energy as the combined Earth Lumina fleet dropped out of warp. Captain Sarah Chen's eyes widened at the sight before her. The Void Hunters were unlike anything she had ever seen or imagined. They were darkness given form, vast shadows that seemed to drink in the very starlight around them. Where normal space-time should have been, there was only a shimmering, writhing absence. It was as if someone had cut holes in the fabric of reality itself. "My God," whispered Commander Takeda beside her. "How do we fight that?" Sarah's jaw tightened. "The same way humanity has always faced the unknown, John. With courage, ingenuity, and sheer stubbornness. The battle that followed would be etched into the annals of both human and Concord history. The Void Hunters, sensing the presence of the fleet, began to move with terrifying speed and purpose. They didn't attack so much as they attempted to engulf, to absorb, to consume. Evasive maneuvers. Sarah barked as a hunter lunged towards the Odyssey. The ship's engines flared, narrowly avoiding the grasping tendrils of darkness. Across the battlefield, human and Lumina ships danced in a deadly ballet. The Lumina's energy weapons seemed to slide off the hunters' shadowy forms, while traditional human projectiles and energy beams disappeared into the void without effect. But humanity had not come unprepared. All ships, this is Admiral Tanaka, came the transmission from the UES Prometheus. Commence Operation Lightbringer. Sarah nodded to Lieutenant Rodriguez. You heard the Admiral. Fire the Prometheus device. A series of sleek missiles erupted from the Odyssey's launch tubes, streaking towards the nearest Void Hunter. Similar launches could be seen across the human fleet. As they neared their targets, the missiles detonated in brilliant flashes of light. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a sound that seemed to shake the very fabric of space, miniature stars blossomed where the Void Hunters had been. The artificial singularities created by the Prometheus devices began to tear at the strange matter composing the Hunters' forms. A cheer went up across the human ships as the first Hunter began to disintegrate, its darkness shredded by the intense gravitational forces. But the victory was short-lived. Captain, Lieutenant Rodriguez called out, her voice tight with alarm. The Hunters are adapting. They're absorbing the singularities. Sarah watched in horror as the remaining Void Hunters seemed to flow around the points of intense gravity, incorporating them into their shadowy mass. With each singularity absorbed, the Hunters grew larger, their movements becoming even more erratic and unpredictable. All ships, fall back and regroup. Admiral Tanaka's voice crackled over the comm. We need a new strategy. As the fleet retreated to a safe distance, Sarah found herself in an emergency conference with the other ship captains and the Lumina commanders. The holographic representations of each leader flickered with barely contained tension. Our primary weapon has failed, Admiral Tanaka said, her voice grim. We need alternatives, people. Fast. It was Zyra, the Lumina tactical expert, who spoke up. Perhaps we have been thinking about this wrong. We cannot destroy that which consumes destruction itself. We must find a way to contain, to redirect. Sarah's mind raced, recalling her earlier conversations with Zyra about the Lumina's approach to combat. A dance, she murmured, then louder. What if we turned their own nature against them? All eyes turned to her. Sarah took a deep breath and laid out her plan. It was risky, borderline insane, but it just might work. The next engagement was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. The combined fleet moved in intricate patterns, weaving between the Void Hunters in a complex dance of feints and withdrawals. Human ships used their advanced stealth technology to appear and disappear, drawing the Hunters into carefully orchestrated kill zones. But instead of attacking directly, the fleet began to manipulate the space around the Hunters. Lumina ships projected enormous energy fields, while human vessels deployed a network of gravity generators. Slowly, painstakingly, they began to herd the Void Hunters together. Now, Sarah called out as the last Hunter was maneuvered into position. Activate the resonance field. A massive energy pulse erupted from the center of the fleet, engulfing the clustered Void Hunters. The pulse resonated with the carefully tuned gravity fields, creating a self-sustaining containment bubble. The Hunters, drawn to the energy, found themselves trapped in an endlessly recursive loop of their own feeding process. For a long moment, the battlefield was silent save for the low hum of the containment field. Then, gradually, the trapped Void Hunters began to shrink, their shadowy substance collapsing in on itself as they consumed each other in a futile attempt to break free. A ragged cheer went up across the fleet as the last of the Hunters disappeared into nothingness. They had done it. The combined ingenuity of humanity and the Lumina had achieved what millennia of conventional warfare could not. But the victory came at a heavy cost. Nearly a third of the fleet had been lost in the battle, their crews consumed by the voracious hunters. The survivors bore scars, both physical and psychological, from their encounter with an enemy that defied comprehension. In the aftermath of the battle, as the fleet limped back to Concord space, Sarah found herself in her ready room, staring at the casualty reports. The names of the lost ships and crew members seemed to blur before her eyes. A chime at her door roused her from her dark thoughts. "Enter," she called out. It was Zyra, the Lumna tactician. The alien's usually shimmering skin seemed dulled, its multifaceted eyes heavy with what Sarah recognized as grief. "Captain Chen," Zyra said, its musical voice somber, "I came to express my people's gratitude and our sorrow for your losses." Sarah nodded, gesturing for Zyra to take a seat. "Your people suffered losses too, Zyra. This victory belongs to all of us." "Indeed," the alien said, settling into the chair, "but it was your strategy that turned the tide. The Concord has fought the Void Hunters for millennia, yet in your first encounter, you found a way to defeat them. It is remarkable." Sarah sighed, leaning back in her chair. "Maybe. But at what cost? How many more battles like this can we endure?" Zyra was silent for a long moment, its eyes shifting in a pattern that Sarah had come to recognize as deep thought. "Perhaps that is the wrong question, Captain. Perhaps we should ask, how can we ensure that such battles are no longer necessary?" The implications of Zyra's words hung heavy in the air. Sarah realized that humanity's role in the galaxy had fundamentally changed. They were no longer just reluctant warriors. They were now architects of a new approach to galactic peace. As the Odyssey made its way back to Earth, carrying news of their victory and the price paid for it, Sarah Chen found herself grappling with the weight of their new responsibility. Humanity had proven its worth on the galactic stage, but in doing so, they had also shouldered a burden beyond anything they had ever known. The war against the Void Hunters was far from over, but the first major battle had been won. Now came the harder task, forging a lasting peace in a galaxy forever changed by conflict. As she looked out at the stars streaking past her window, Sarah couldn't help but wonder, in becoming the reluctant masters of warfare, had humanity lost something of itself, or had they finally found their true purpose among the stars? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. A new era. The return to Earth was a bittersweet homecoming. As the Odyssey and the remaining ships of the human fleet descended through the atmosphere, they were greeted by cheering crowds and solemn memorials. Humanity had won its first interstellar battle, but the cost had been high. Captain Sarah Chen stood before the United Earth Council, her dress uniform feeling stiff and uncomfortable after months in space. The faces of the council members were a mix of awe, pride, and concern as she recounted the events of the battle against the Void Hunters. "And so," Sarah concluded, "while we were victorious, we must understand that this is only the beginning. The Void Hunters remain a threat, and our place in the galactic community has been irrevocably altered." Admiral Tanaka stepped forward, her face grave. "The Galactic Concord has extended an official invitation for Earth to join as a full member. They recognize the vital role we played in developing new strategies against the Hunters, and they're eager for further collaboration." A murmur ran through the council chamber. Councillor Emeka Okafor, representative from the African Union, leaned forward. "And what of our military autonomy? Will we be expected to place our forces under Concord command?" "No," Admiral Tanaka said firmly. "That was a key point in our negotiations. Earth will maintain control of its military forces, but will work in close cooperation with Concord fleets." The debate that followed lasted for days. The implications of joining an interstellar alliance were staggering, touching on every aspect of human society. Economic systems would need to adapt to galactic trade. Legal frameworks would have to account for interactions with alien species. Education would need to expand to include knowledge of the wider galaxy. But beneath all the practical concerns lay a deeper, more philosophical question. What would this mean for humanity's identity? For millennia, humans had defined themselves in opposition to the unknown, the alien. Now they were poised to become part of a vast, diverse galactic community. As the debates raged on Earth, Sarah found herself once again aboard the Odyssey, this time as part of a diplomatic mission to Lumina Prime, the heart of the galactic Concord. The massive ring world that served as the Concord's capital made even the impressive Lumina station they had first encountered seem tiny by comparison. Standing in the great hall of the Concord Assembly, Sarah felt a sense of awe wash over her. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the chamber, their diverse forms a testament to the incredible variety of life in the galaxy. At the center of it all stood Zarek, now revealed as the High Counselor of the Concord. Representatives of Earth, Zarek's harmonic voice rang out, "We welcome you to the Galactic Concord. Your bravery, ingenuity, and commitment to peace in the face of existential threat have proven your worth beyond any doubt." Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady as she addressed the assembly. "On behalf of humanity, we are honored to join the Concord. We come not as conquerors or soldiers, but as partners in the pursuit of galactic peace and prosperity." The ratification of Earth's membership in the Galactic Concord marked the beginning of a new era for humanity. The exchange of knowledge and technology that followed led to advancements that would have been unimaginable just a few years before. Faster-than-light travel became more efficient, opening up vast new regions of the galaxy for exploration. Medical breakthroughs extended human lifespans and cured diseases long thought incurable. But with these advancements came new challenges. As humans spread out among the stars, establishing colonies on distant worlds and integrating into alien societies, they had to grapple with questions of identity and purpose. 5 years after the battle against the Void Hunters, Sarah Chen found herself back on Earth, standing on the shores of Lake Geneva. The gleaming spires of the new Galactic Concord Embassy rose behind her, a symbol of humanity's new role in the cosmic order. "Penny for your thoughts, Captain," a familiar voice called out. Sarah turned to see Admiral Tanaka approaching, her uniform now bearing the insignia of both Earth and the Galactic Concord. Sarah smiled. "Just thinking about how far we've come, Admiral, and how far we still have to go." Tanaka nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon. "The latest reports from the Hunter front are promising. The containment strategies we developed are holding, and the Concord scientists think they might have found a way to communicate with them." "Communicate?" Sarah asked, surprised. "I thought the Hunters were just mindless consumers." "That's what everyone thought," Tanaka replied. "But your battle strategy got some of the xenolinguists thinking. If the Hunters can adapt and strategize, there must be some form of intelligence there. We might be on the brink of turning enemies into potential allies." Sarah shook her head in wonder. From first contact to galactic peacekeepers in just a few years, sometimes I wonder if we're moving too fast. Tanaka placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "That's why we need people like you, Sarah. People who can bridge the gap between our past and our future. The reluctant warriors who understand the cost of conflict and the value of peace." As they stood there, watching the sun set over the lake, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought humanity to this point. They had faced their greatest fears, confronted an enemy beyond imagination, and emerged not as conquerors, but as architects of a new galactic order. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges and opportunities beyond anything they had ever known. But Sarah knew that humanity would face it the same way they had faced every obstacle in their history, with courage, creativity, and an unwavering spirit of exploration. As the first stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Sarah felt a sense of hope and purpose wash over her. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as the warriors they had feared they might become, but as the peacekeepers they had always aspired to be. The reluctant masters of warfare had become the guardians of galactic harmony, and in doing so, they had not lost their humanity, but had discovered its truest, noblest expression. The new era had begun, and the greatest adventure in human history was just beginning.